Hi everyone, welcome to Good Day Chula Vista, episode 51. Yes, we've made it to 51, and today we have a very special guest, Laura Talamantes. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
She has great information about immigration, so please stay with us. We're back. Okay, guys. Well, thank you for joining us. And like I said, we have a very special guest. And is this the first time you're doing a Facebook live show?
Yes, that is correct,
Oh,
FABY.
great. So, look, she's practicing for the first time, and we're practicing with you guys. How's that? So, we are very happy to have her here, and we're going to be talking about immigration. So, please share this video to your page right now. If you have any questions, make sure you ask the questions below this video, and we'll be asking her throughout the show the questions that you guys have. And at the end of the show, we're gonna give out we're gonna give out 3 Starbucks cards. That's what we're giving, right?
Yeah.
Or what did you say?
Starbucks.
Yeah.
I didn't know 3.
Yeah. So we'll do 3 Starbucks cards today. So make sure you're making your comments, asking your questions, sharing this video, and it's really good information. So thank you so much, Laura, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And Laura, I know you're very good friends with one of my really good friends, and he's the one that told us about you. But I wanted you to share about you because people here in the community, not everybody knows you. So tell us about you.
Okay, so my name is Laura Talamantes. I'm an immigration attorney. I've been practicing immigration law for 13 years now.
Oh, wow.
I first started practicing for a nonprofit organization in El Paso, Texas, where I assisted undocumented victims of domestic violence, human trafficking, and crimes.
Oh, wow.
After that, I went and worked for a private law firm, and then I
Uh-huh.
decided to open up my own practice, and I've been having my own practice now for about 3 years here in Chula Vista.
Oh, wow. 3 years.
Yes.
Wow. In Chula Vista. Are you here in East Chula Vista, or what part of Chula Vista?
Near downtown Chula Vista,
Oh,
off
okay.
Church Avenue.
Okay, yeah,
Mhm.
so like on the west side, closer to all the new construction that's going to be going on there pretty soon, closer to the marina, right?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. And do you have any kids? Are you married?
I'm married and I have a dog named Malinche.
What kind of dog?
She's a pit bull and boxer mix.
Oh, wow. I have
Yes.
2 dogs. I have a little Yorkie and a little poodle. They're
Cute.
they're our kids,
Yes, they are.
but they're less trouble than real kids, let me tell you.
That's what I've heard.
Thank you. So we're gonna have this here. So Laura, we have some questions for you, just because this is a very touchy subject for a lot of people, and we had another attorney come here a couple of weeks ago, but it was in Spanish. We did it in Spanish for a lot of the people that don't speak English, but there's a lot of people that do speak English, or a lot of people that don't speak Spanish and have family members that have immigration problems. And I think this is a good opportunity for them to find out a few of the answers to a few of the questions they have. So we put together, we have some questions here, and then we'll ask you if you want to go over your notes to get us the answer. And then sometimes if you can just share your opinion, what you think, since you've been doing it so many years.
Okay.
So let me, just before we get into the questions, what made you decide to go into immigration?
I decided to practice immigration just because I felt like I wanted to help out people in situations where they needed assistance, and I just wanted to make sure that someone has an honest person who's going to actually assist them and be honest with them and help them through the process.
Right, not just taking their money or, you know.
Yeah, because unfortunately nowadays I hear a lot of people who come to my office who say like, oh, I paid this attorney $10,000 and nothing was fixed with my case, and so I just think that that's very unfortunate. So in my office, me and all my staff, we are completely 100% honest with clients or potential clients,
Mhm.
and oftentimes we do turn people away stating that there's no benefit, that there's nothing that we can help you with.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, they get upset and they go with other attorneys who thereafter just take their money if they can't
Right.
that they can't help them. So it's very important that they go with an attorney who has a good reputation, and an attorney who's honest, and an attorney who practices exclusively immigration law,
Right, because that way you know all the
ins and outs.
yes, exactly, and it's complicated. I mean, there's a lot of gray areas that if you don't know the law, you could, end up not really helping them if you don't know all the little
Correct. So like I've said, I've been doing this for 13 years, but still to this day, I still have to research the law because everything also is changing, especially with this current administration. Things are changing all the time. So you need to make sure that you're on top of all of the new policies, everything that's changing with the law.
Updating yourself.
Correct.
Yeah. It's like a never-ending study for you guys. Is you guys don't finish school. Like you graduate, but you have to keep studying
Correct.
all the new laws. So let's start with some of the questions. And if you come up with anything else that you think somebody would probably be asking, we can add them as we go.
Okay.
So I heard that if someone was a victim of a crime and it's undocumented, is there a way for that person to still obtain a visa?
Yes, so if someone's an undocumented victim of a crime, and if the person entered the country without documents or even with documents, it's very important that person call the police to obtain a police report. Because in order to obtain a U visa, which is a visa for someone who's a victim of a crime, they need to have a police report, they need to assist with the investigation and or prosecution. So it's very important to call the police if you're a victim of a crime.
Okay, so call the police, make sure you have the report and have that ready for your attorney.
Correct. So oftentimes the majority of my clients who apply for this type of visa, which is called a U visa, with the U visa you can live and work in the United States for 5 years. After 3 years, you can apply to become a lawful permanent resident of the United States. There's certain qualifying crimes that make the person eligible for a U visa. So for instance, the majority of my clients are unfortunately undocumented victims of domestic violence. So again, it's very important if anyone's a victim of a crime not to be scared to call the police, because it's not the police's job, not law enforcement's job, to actually inquire into someone's immigration status. That's left for the federal authorities. When you're calling the police, it's at the state level, and they should not inquire into your legal status.
Right. So let me ask you, since we're going into that, if let's say I'm undocumented and I don't have I'm illegally here, and somebody breaks into my house, or somebody hits me, but I'm afraid to call the police, right? I finally call them and I get somebody that does call immigration on me, or maybe the neighbor's telling something about me. Can I still get an attorney?
Yes, you can. So if for some reason you're stopped by an immigration officer if you're trying to report a crime, it's very important you just continue to report the crime, right? So that you can have the police report, which will eventually help you out. And also it's important that you just tell the officer, I don't want to speak to you about, the country I'm from or where I'm from. I'd like to speak to my attorney. And that person also has the right to go before an immigration judge. So oftentimes officers will threaten people and say, we're going to remove you from the country right away. But the law states that if someone has a fear to return to their country of origin, and if they tell the officer that they would like to speak to an immigration judge and their attorney, then they should be able to do so. There's certain factors where a person does not have the right to speak to an immigration judge. For instance, if the person's been deported before. But so every single case is different.
Right.
And with immigration law, it's very complex. And so that's why I always tell people to go to an attorney who has experience in practicing immigration law, because there's so many nuances involved with the law.
Right. Okay, so I guess if I'm undocumented, I should make sure that I have information with an attorney before I get in trouble, or before something happens. Have a card of, do your homework. Like, which are the immigration attorneys that I will go to in the event that something would happen. Hopefully nothing's gonna happen, but I think a lot of people wait until that happens, and then there's not that much you can do when you're inside.
Yes. So what I do tell people who come to my office is I like to provide a legal analysis for each and every person. And even if the person's not eligible for a benefit, what I do is I teach them about their rights, and I explain to them what their rights are if they're stopped by an immigration officer, if they're stopped by a police officer. It's very important that people do understand what their legal rights are. And so I highly recommend that if someone does not have documents, or if they've had issues with immigration in the past, especially with this current administration, I highly recommend that the person go speak to an immigration attorney, just so that they know, like, if they would potentially have a case in the future.
Right. Yeah, just so they can prepare what they should do and not do.
Correct. And one other thing I'd like to add too is if anybody has had problems with immigration in the past, like if they're trying to come over to the United States and they get stopped at the port of entry, it's really important that the person apply for what's called a FOIA. That's called the Freedom of Information Act. And that's able for them to obtain a copy of their file, so that they know in the future if something happens with immigration reform, what they're eligible for any future benefits.
Okay, so what is that one called?
It's called a FOIA, Freedom of Information Act. and there's different entities where you can file the FOIA under, like with Customs and Border Protection or National Record Center. So when a client comes to my office, I decipher what happened to the person, and then I tell them which type of FOIA they should request. So again, if something happens in the future with immigration reform, at least you know a little bit about your immigration history and the information that immigration has against you.
Okay, yeah, that's good to know. Okay, so what should I do if immigration comes to my house and knocks on my door and I'm undocumented?
So if immigration comes to your house and knocks on your door, it's just very important that you ask them to show you a warrant if they actually want to come into the house. I highly recommend that if someone knocks on the door and there's someone who's undocumented in the house, you do not have to open the door unless they have a warrant that's signed by a judge. So you can ask them to actually physically put the warrant under the door. Also, if you have other people who are undocumented in the house, I'd highly recommend that you try to get outside of the house, because once the officer's inside of the house, the officer can start questioning other people regarding their legal status. Based upon my professional experience, a lot of people who don't have documents tend to reside with other people who don't have documents. Does that make sense? So it's just important that these people understand what their rights are. Another thing that I always tell people that come to my office, or even when I talk to them over the phone, it's important that you know what your rights are if you're stopped, for instance. So at my office, we have these red cards. They're called Know Your Rights. It's in English and in Spanish, and we provide these to our clients when they come to the office so that they can always carry this card with them in case if they're stopped, then they could at least pull out the card, because I know it's very nerve-wracking to be in front of law enforcement.
You probably go blank.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. So I just tell people to always carry these cards with them, and then to be able to read off the card. If anybody who's watching this would like one of these cards, please feel free to give my office a call at 619-606-3616 to get a card, or just stop by the office, and we're more than happy to provide these cards to anyone who could use them.
Oh, that's wonderful. That is such a good tool. We're going to have that number also after the show. We're going to have it on top of this video so you guys have the number directly to our office. Okay, so then somebody knocks on the door. I'm documented, but somebody in my house is not. The best thing would be to me open the door and go outside and close the door behind me.
That's what I would recommend.
Right,
correct.
and that way they're not talking to anyone else, and then I ask to see the warrant signed by a judge.
Signed by a judge, correct. Yes.
So once they have that, they're allowed to come inside the house, right?
Once they have them, they could go and talk to the particular person, the individual. That's why I'd recommend that the person go outside of the house and then talk to the officer. Because oftentimes what happens is once they allow the officer in the house, and the officer can start eliciting information from other people who are there. And recently with this current administration, we're seeing people being picked up left and right due to constitutional right violations. So a lot of the cases that we have right now that are in court proceedings, we're trying to get the cases out of the court proceedings because the officers have violated someone's constitutional rights.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if they don't have a warrant signed by the judge, and I don't call that other person to the door, do I get in trouble?
You should not get in trouble, because you have to have a warrant to be able to.
They can't just come into my house to arrest anyone.
No, unless you're the one that opens the door to allow the person in the house.
Right.
So again, that's why it's important for people to understand what their rights are.
Right.
And also, again, like I tell people to always carry around the Know Your Rights cards, whether they get it from my office or anywhere else. It's just very important that every single person is educated about what their legal rights are.
Right. Okay. Perfect. Great information.
Mm-hmm.
So I heard that you can get a work permit if you have been in the U.S. for 10 years. Is this true? What kind of permit also?
Okay, so there's this common misconception. A lot of people come to my office and say, oh, I went to this attorney, and this attorney told me that I'm going to be able to get a work permit because I've been in the United States for 10 years. What people usually are referring to is what's called cancellation of removal. Cancellation of removal means that if you're before an immigration judge, and first of all, you don't want to be before an immigration judge, but if for some reason you get picked up by an immigration judge and you've been in the United States for more than 10 years or longer, and at the time that you're in court proceedings, and if you have a child, a parent, or spouse who's a U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident, and you've been what's called a person of good moral character, meaning that you're not convicted of certain serious crimes, then you could apply for a cancellation of removal, which eventually means that you can obtain your green card. You have to prove there'd be extreme hardship to the qualifying relative, but what a lot of people are referring to with the work permit is once you're in immigration proceedings and you're filing for cancellation of removal, you can file for a work permit. So the answer to that question, in my opinion, is no, there's no work permit that you can get for 10 years unless you're before an immigration judge.
Okay. So that's a misconception. It's always good, like she said, have a meeting, set up an appointment with an attorney, know your rights, and go over all these things before.
If I could just tell you one more thing, if
Yeah.
you don't mind, just about this misconception is what happens a lot of times, it's been happening in the past, is that a lot of immigration or notarios, immigration attorneys will file asylum applications for people when the person's not even eligible for asylum. And what happens is now when this person's applying for this work permit through asylum, they submit the paperwork with immigration, that person can eventually get a work permit. However, down the road, they're going to have a very hard time immigrating because oftentimes the person who's filling out the forms makes up information that's not true or correct.
Right.
And when the applicant signing it, they're signing it under penalty of perjury. So even if they didn't know what they're signing, an officer can come back to you and say, well, you're the one that signed this, and then the person's now going to have problems down the road if they want to try to immigrate.
Because they lied pretty
They
much
lied
to
on-
get that permit.
Exactly, and unfortunately, I've seen that happening a lot recently, and now when someone's applying for asylum, as of this current administration, the person's getting an interview with the immigration officer right away. Before it was taking years, but now they're doing it right away, and so a lot of people, unfortunately, are now getting their case denied. Now they're going to have to fight it before an immigration judge, and then if you lied, it creates a lot of problems. So I always tell my clients, do not lie to an immigration officer. Do not lie when filling out forms, and do not go to an attorney who's going to tell you to lie, because that person's not being honest with you. It's against the law to lie to obtain an immigration benefit.
Wow, it's so important to go with the right person, right? So let's go to the next question here. My friend entered the U.S. 3 years ago and is scared to return to her country. Can she apply for asylum?
So the question is regarding an asylum application.
Asylum.
And an asylum application is typically, if someone enters the United States, they have to file for asylum within 1 year of their last entry. Okay? The only way that a case can be accepted for asylum for late filing is if there's what's called changed circumstances. So it's more times than not, it's pretty difficult to get the longer than 1 year asylum application to be approved or to fight that.
Right.
So it's really important that if someone enters the United States and they're fearful to return to their country, I always advise them that they file the asylum application less than 1 year before they enter, because there's just certain laws and regulations that apply regarding the timing and everything.
So apply in less than a year, remember. That's going to make it a lot easier. Can someone still apply for Daca? And what is Daca?
Okay, so DACA is a deferred action for childhood arrivals, and it's basically, there's a list of requirements that the person has to be eligible for, and there's a series of 7 different requirements, right? And so if anyone has a question regarding renewing their DACA application, they can call the office and I can go over all of the different eligibility requirements. So back in the day, people could apply for DACA up front if they met the requirements and also renew their DACA. But just recently, you can no longer apply for first-time filing DACA applicants. It's only if you currently had your work permit under DACA and then you want to apply to renew or extend your work permit.
Oh, okay. So they're not giving new ones anymore.
They're not, no.
Is it because of the new administration?
Because the new administration, correct. Yeah, they're only allowing you to file renewal applications.
Wow, so many changes with this new administration, right?
Yeah, and that's why I always tell people it's very important that you go to an attorney who actually understands immigration laws, because right now if someone does file a DACA application, for instance, for the first time, the person's not eligible, now you're providing immigration with all this information regarding someone who's here unlawfully, someone whose parents are here unlawfully, and I just think that it's really important not to file something unless you're statutorily eligible for the benefit that you're applying for.
How can you, before I go to this other question, let me just ask you, how can I tell if the attorney that I'm going with is being honest?
If the attorney you're going with is being honest?
Right, like how would I know if they really know about immigration? Because it's really hard for us to really, like for you it'll be very easy to know, but for us that we're not used to it, like what are the things that we can ask just so we can get some hints if we're at the right place?
Okay, so the first thing is if anyone's going to an attorney, the person can call the state bar to see if the person's licensed in whatever state they're licensed in.
Okay.
So immigration law is federal, so an immigration attorney from Texas or from any other state can still practice federal immigration law. So you can just ask the attorney, oh, can you tell me where you're licensed at? And you can actually call the state bar or look online for some states to see if the person's in what's called good standing, because immigration attorneys, or all attorneys, have to be in good standing in order for them to practice law. So I just recommend that. I also recommend. A lot of people who come to my office, like if I feel like they're, you know, uncertain, I tell them, I say, you know, you go shop around. You should really go with who you feel you're comfortable with, because this is a huge decision, right? So you have to be able to relate to your attorney, and that's what I tell people.
Sometimes go with your gut feeling, right?
Correct.
Okay, maybe read reviews. You know, a lot of people do the reviews when somebody did a good job or a bad job too. Like if you go to Yelp, and you know, sometimes you can find reviews there for the people that haven't, you know, done a good job. You get a lot of those instead of, like, we don't usually see all the good ones, all the good reviews, because people don't usually take time to do the good reviews. It's usually the bad ones, but I think that helps if you're trying to look for an attorney. Check reference. Do you have like reviews from your clients on your website?
I have reviews from my client on my website, Yelp, Google+, Facebook.
Okay.
I try to get people to write reviews
Right,
as often.
because that's how you can help the new clients really feel comfortable, because they're hearing it from previous clients.
Yeah, and a lot of my clients too the majority of my clients are word of mouth referrals.
Okay.
So usually, like, I'll help out someone's uncle, and then they'll start to refer the entire family, and so they already trust us because they know that we do a good job for our clients. Because again, it's the motto of my firm that we do not take a case that we believe that we cannot win, and I make sure that all of my employees, all of my staff, that they don't lie to people, they don't take cases that we know that the person doesn't have a benefit for. Because at the end of the day, I know it's very important. A lot of my clients, unfortunately, don't have that much money, and so I would never take advantage of someone regarding that.
Right. You're not going to be able to help them. Just tell them straight out.
We tell them
don't waste
all
your
the
money.
time.
Yeah.
Correct.
One of the things that we didn't have a question here, but I wanted to ask. I know that we talked about if they come to the house and knock on the door, but what if I'm driving? What if I'm driving and I'm undocumented and I get stopped?
If you're driving and you're documented and you get stopped, like, the one thing that I tell people is not to carry any proof that they're from a different country, right? Like, not to carry IDs from another country. If the person can't get the driver's license in California, when the person is undocumented, you could still get a driver's license. I recommend that they try to get the driver's license. If someone does get stopped, I mean, I think it's up to the individual person. A lot of attorneys say, you know, you don't have to, by law, you don't have to say anything, and you could say, I want to speak to my attorney, I don't want to sign anything. But I also believe that if you have nothing to really hide per se, I tell my clients, you know, to also to work with law enforcement to a certain extent, because they could just be issuing you like a
Ticket,
infraction for driving without a license or whatever it may be. So I think, but every single person does have the right to say, you know, I don't want to speak to you. I'd like to speak to my attorney before I say anything, and you do have that right.
Okay. Yes, it's so important. Like, get that card. What are my rights? Is that what?
Know your rights.
Know your rights. Yeah, definitely. That little card is a lifesaver.
It is. It's been a lifesaver for many of my clients.
Yes. So what does the future of immigration hold under the current administration, on your opinion?
That's unknown. I'm not sure. Things are changing. Things are changing all the time, and the only thing I could tell you is that it's just important that me and my staff, like, we stay up to date with everything that's constantly changing. But with this current administration, we really are seeing changes like weekly or monthly. It's just, but honestly, I don't think that anyone can predict what the future of immigration holds.
We can pray. That's one of the things we can do. We can get informed. You know, one of the things that I was so happy that you were going to be here, and I know it's not one of the questions here. It's about, there's so much going on right now with these families that are here and are being detained and they separated from the kids. And, you know, we hear it from the news, but it's news, and, you know, they want to sell. So sometimes they exaggerate. So what is true and what are rumors? Like, since you're so close to all that, what can you advise the people? Like, what to really believe, what not to believe, and what they can do?
So one thing that I can tell you, just based upon my experience and the clients that we go see through our office, a lot of the mothers who are coming with their children are being detained and they are being separated. So that much is true. Down the road, a lot of the mothers can bond out of immigration detention. We assist people with that all the time, where they're detained, but they ask for a bond so that they can fight their case outside of the immigration detention facility. But for the most part, everything that you are hearing on the TV and the news regarding the children being separated from their parents, unfortunately, that is true, and hopefully there'll be a change with that sometime soon. Because I don't.
Is there anything we can do?
I just think that the best thing that you guys can do, people can do, is to donate money to nonprofit organizations that assist with making policy changes or assist with just making changes in general. There's a few nonprofit organizations that I really believe in, and if anyone has any questions, they can feel free to send me an email and I can send them a list of these nonprofit organizations. But that's what I recommend to people who are trying to, help out to make a change.
Right. Okay. So definitely. So do you have it on your website, or they can just call you and get those names for the?
They can just give me a call, because I have a list of the ones that I recommend. But I also recommend that people do their own research to figure out which organization really speaks true to them.
Right.
But there's a couple that I really recommend, and I can definitely provide that information to anyone interested.
Okay. Great. So what else can you tell us about immigration? Anything that we missed that you think people should know to protect themselves?
I just think the most important thing, again, is what we talked about earlier, is if anyone has an immigration matter, any questions at all, it's really important they just go speak to an attorney who's going to be honest and provide them with an analysis of their case. Also, again, if anyone's had any apprehensions at the port of entry, that they obtain a copy of their file so if something happens with immigration reform in the future. Another thing that I personally recommend and that I tell my clients is if someone who's here who's undocumented, it's important that they start to obtain like vital information regarding, for instance, their kids' birth certificates, to have proof that they've been residing in the United States for 10 years. Stuff that will help them, that if they do get picked up, at least they're going to have everything like in one like safe place.
Right.
And to let all the family members know, okay, here's my information, here's my documentation. Why? Because once the person gets picked up, then your attorney, if represented by counsel, can start to put all the documentations together, for instance, for a bond application.
Yeah, I think that is really important. Be ready, be prepared. If you know you have this issue, definitely be prepared for anything that happens in the future, and you're not putting, because you put your family through all that, because you're detained, your family's already stressed out that you're detained and they don't know what to do, they can't find the pay, and then usually when you're trying to find something, you can't find it.
Correct.
So if you have it all together, just like we do with our taxes, we start putting everything together in a box, so when tax day comes, we can just pick up that box. Do the same with all your paperwork that you're going to need, but definitely sit with an attorney so you know exactly what you need to put in that box and have it ready. So is it expensive to get help from an attorney?
So it just depends. Every single case is different. Every single attorney is different. I know for my office, we do understand that a lot of our clients do not have money, and so we do offer payment plans. So we ask for a low payment down on monthly payments, just because we understand the struggle that people are going through, right? Because now if their father's detained and the father was the breadwinner, who's going to be making the payments? So we do offer payment plans. And again, I think it just depends. Every attorney's different. It depends on the attorney's expertise, how many years they've been practicing. I believe that all of those things are taken into account when an attorney is quoting a fee for someone.
Okay. And is there like an initial fee for the first, let's say somebody wants to come by and see, like, can you guys help me or not? Is there a fee for that? So
we typically do have a consultation fee. However, if it's someone, like, for instance, if they say that they saw this Facebook Live, then we'll waive the fee. So just depending upon the organization, we like to help people out as much as possible. So when we go out to the community, we do a lot of events where we give presentations about Know Your Rights, and I tell people then the consultation fee is waived as long as you say that, for instance, you saw through this Facebook Live. So you have like seminars or things like that? Or? We do, yes, we do. Oh, that's great. Do you advertise them on your Facebook page, on your website, or how can we find out when you have those? On our Facebook page, yes. Okay. So definitely we're going to link it to this video so that way you guys can go to her page and like her firm page, and that way you guys are informed, and when there's the next one, then if you have family members or friends that you want to invite, just come by. Is it safe? Yeah. We usually do a lot of the presentations at schools, churches. Oh, that's great. Where, we have really good relationships with like different pastors, and so we'll go to the church and we'll do presentations there where people feel safe. Yeah, that is great, because a lot of people get scared. I know that I had a couple of friends and they were really scared to do a lot of things, like even going to birthday parties. See, they were down south in San Isidro, that's how they live with that fear. And I think it's just because they're not informed, they don't know their rights. So I think that's awesome that you do those. Are those free or? Yes, they're free. Oh, they're free. Wow, definitely. Why not join you? And where is your office at? I don't have that. 272 Church Avenue, suite number 2, Chula Vista. Okay. So we're close to downtown Chula Vista.
I think there's
to
a 7-Eleven right there, right
Correct.
across the street.
Yes.
Richard Arroyo, I think it's there.
On the corner, correct, criminal
yeah,
defense
he's
attorney.
one of our friends. Oh,
Oh.
a small world. I remember that street. Okay, do you guys have any questions here?
There's one in the,
Okay. Let's go with Claudia's question first.
from the viewer.
Well, who's the viewer that has that question?
Esperanza.
Esperanza, what's her question?
What happens if your spouse is a permanent resident applying or citizenship and you are here illegally? What are your rights? It cuts it off. My phone doesn't let me see the whole
Oh,
question.
okay, let me see here. I'll find her. Esperanza. So these are all the, just so you see how we have it live here. So, like, these are the people that are in right now. And then the questions, I'll put them here.
Yeah.
Lately, it hasn't been let here. What happens if your spouse is a permanent resident applying for citizenship and you're here illegally? What are your rights? They have 3 U.S. citizen children and another child that was born in another country and is here illegally as well. So she's illegal, and one of the babies are illegal, and the other 3 are U.S. citizens, and the husband is a permanent resident and is applying for citizenship.
So if the husband's a lawful permanent resident and is applying for U.S. citizenship, on the form N-400, which is the application for naturalization, it asks you regarding like where the spouse lives, like where the children live. Thus far, we have not seen immigration officers going after people who are who don't have immigration status. But also regarding the spouse who's going to be a U.S. citizen applying for the wife, every single case is different. If she entered the country without documents but never left the country after she first entered, she can do what's called consular processing, where you file a waiver within the United States and then leave the country to go become a lawful permanent resident. So it just really depends upon, it's very fact specific. So if she wants to, she can call the office for a consultation and I can do an analysis to see what she's eligible for.
Okay, SP, make sure you give her that number. We're gonna have it on top of this video with her website, with a link to her Facebook page, so that way you guys can connect. Okay, I think we got the questions. So there'll be more questions here later, because as people get off work and they watch the video, they'll be asking questions. And if you have time, maybe you can go back to our video and then just answer the questions. Or, we're just going to have your number there. That way they can call your office directly. Are there, do you have a big team in your office, or is it just you and an assistant?
No, we have, I think it's 6, a team of 6.
Oh, wow.
We
it's
have
a
an
big team.
attorney who works for us full time, and she's the one that's responsible for doing all the removal cases. And then we have paralegals, and then we have receptionists. So we have a good team. I'm proud of my team.
Oh, that's great. And everybody's bilingual?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, everyone's bilingual.
That's great.
Spanish, English.
Well, great.
German too.
I think that's all good information. Did you guys get all your questions answered? Yes. Okay, perfect. So we're gonna have her number. Remember, she has those free seminars, so you guys can come and get informed, know your rights. Call her so you can pick up one of those little cards, know your rights, in Spanish and English, and that way you can carry it with you. If you have a friend that needs one, just make sure you share her information with your friends. And she's here in Chula Vista. She's local, so what better way to feel connected than you're here locally? You don't have to go all the way to downtown. And she's here, and she has a lot of experience. And we're so happy that you came and shared all this with us.
Thank you for having me.
So, and thank you for doing this with us the first time.
Of course.
Okay, so guys, we're gonna leave you with one of our videos, but before we do that, we should do the drawing, Claudia. Claudia's forgetting because people are gonna be like, hey, we didn't get our gift cards.
I know, and we said 3 today.
Okay, so we're gonna have you get 3. Look, we have these little sounds here, like just to make it fun. Where is it? I think we have it backwards. So let's see. So that we're getting 3 Starbucks gift cards.
Jenny, JS.
Jenny again. Hey, she's a good one. She's here every week, so
Yeah.
we'll mail that to you because she's up in Temecula. Okay. We'll do that. So,
Leti Hueso.
Leti Hueso, we'll send you yours. We should make you come and pick it up so we can see you. One more.
Oh.
Yep. Got stuck. They have this sticky on it because they're
Oh.
Post-its. There it is.
Luis.
Luis Isais, yay! So we'll have it here at the office for you. Thank you so much for joining us, for being so loyal to us, and please share this video with your friends, share it to your page. We're gonna leave you with one of our listings that we're doing an open house this weekend, and it's 1246 Monte Sereno here in Chula Vista in Otay Ranch. And it's listed for $720 to $749. It's a big house, 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, 3-car garage, with an optional bedroom downstairs. So we're gonna leave you with that video, and thank you again.
Thank you so much.
And we'll see you next week at 4. Don't forget.